There are a whole bunch of competitive Senate seats this year, some of which are within a few points that are going to determine control of the chamber. According to 538, Democrats right now have a 71% chance of holding the Senate. Their model appears to show Democrats could pick up as many as 7 seats, so that would be a winning the lottery kind of night, right? Now, this is in a year where even just 6 months ago, it sure looked like Democrats were screwed, no hope. But now the Democrats have a shot. What would it look like to have a majority of Democratic senators who could, for instance, override the filibuster, move on popular legislative priorities like guaranteeing the right to an abortion? What possibilities are there if Democrats buck history in the midterm elections? Joining me now is Senator Bernie Sanders, independent from Vermont, chair of the Senate Democratic Outreach Committee. Senator, first, let me take your temperature on how you think things are looking for retaining control of the Senate, these tough contested races, in an environment that historically has been very difficult for the party that controls the White House.
Well, I would say that things are better than they were a few months ago, but as you indicated, there are many, many seats out there that are within the margin of error, so we don't know how these things will end up. But to my mind, Chris, to answer your question, if Democrats are going to do well in 2022, in my view, they've got to stand up very firmly for working families, make it clear that we are seeing unprecedented levels of corporate greed, unprecedented levels of concentration of ownership in this country. All the while, working families are struggling, and in many instances seeing a decline in their standard of living. So I think now is the time, if you want to win an election, to say, you know what, I'm on the side of the vast majority of Americans, black, white, Latino. I'm prepared to take on greedy, powerful corporate interests who are enjoying record-breaking profits while you Americans can't afford health care, can't afford to send your kids to college, and are working for starvation wages. That, to my mind, is how you go forward and win. One of the big accomplishments of the unified democratic governance was the announcement of the president's cancellation, $10,000 of student debt, $20,000 for those who are getting Pew grants. You can chart a clear trajectory from your presidential campaign that championed that issue along with Elizabeth Warren to it actually happening. And there was a lot of back and forth. Is this going to cause a backlash? Are people going to be resentful because I had to pay my loans? What is your sense of the outcome of this in terms of what it's meant for people's lives and also what it's meant politically? I have the radical idea that good policy is good politics. And it is good policy to cancel student debt in this country. I cannot tell you, Chris, how many young and middle-aged people I have talked to who have hesitated, having children, can't afford to buy a house, whose lives are in economic trouble because they're paying off these huge student debts. So what Biden did was the right thing. I would have gone further. It's what the people want. I'm not going to tell you it's 100% popular, but it is what the people want. And you know what? If you do what the people want and not what the corporate world wants or billionaire campaign contributors want, you win elections. If you raise the minimum wage to a living wage, you win elections. If you expand Medicare to include dental and hearing and vision, which recently in a poll had only 87% support, you win elections. If you build housing and create jobs, you win elections. If you give tax breaks to the rich, you're probably not going to win. So my own view is there is an agenda out there, and the cancellation of student debt is one part of it. But we've got to go further and show working families we're on their side.
There are people on the other side of it. Ted Cruz has been plotting with folks to try to challenge it in court. Republican legal challenges are expected to start once the applications start rolling out. Legal experts say it's possible the administration's plan could be frozen by a federal judge. What do you think about this plot to try to find someone that is standing to block this in court?
Well, I think it sounds to me very much what happened with the Supreme Court ruling on abortion. It turns out that the overwhelming majority of the American people think it is women who have the right to control their own lives, not the Republican Party. Strong majority of the American people think we should cancel student debt. And if Senator Cruz and others want to challenge that, I think that's going to hurt them politically. It's the wrong thing to do, and I think it hurts them politically.
One of the most striking features of the last 2 years which have been strange in many ways, obviously coming out of the worst parts of the COVID pandemic still with us, inflation high, labor market's very tight, has been this raft of union organizing, unlike anything that we've really seen in, I think it's fair to say, decades. The NLRB showing the union elections won by mid-year. You can see that spike there in 2022. It's been about 20 years since we've seen this. What do you think's going on here?
It ain't hard to tell you, to figure out. Workers are working, in many instances, longer hours for lower wages, and with inflation, they're falling further and further behind. You want to know what's going on? In the last 49 years, real wages today are lower than they were 49 years ago, despite an increase in productivity. Almost all of the new income and wealth is going to the people on top. And what working people are saying, excuse me, I can't afford to buy a house, I can't afford to send my kids to college, and yet during the pandemic, the billionaire class saw a $2 trillion increase in their wealth. That's what's going on. People are standing up, fighting back. We've been involved in many of these strikes. We're involved in this railroad situation right now, where you're seeing the most ugly type of corporate greed imaginable. Railroads, 5 major railroads, made $20 billion in profits last year. Meanwhile, for the last 6 years, they laid off a third of their workforce. And when workers get sick and they have to stay home, they are in a position to lose their jobs. So what you're seeing right now are workers saying enough is enough. You know, you guys on top, you can't have it all. We need an economy that works for all of us. Unions are one vehicle that help people get decent wages and working conditions.
You know, I have to say, as someone who, covers this kind of stuff, it came as news to me that railroad workers don't get sick days. I think it came as news to the President of the United States. Hopefully that's going to change. We're going to see if they're going to ratify this new contract, but that appears to be one of the changes. Senator Bernie Sanders, thank you very much. I appreciate it.